Off the top tonight, special counsel Jack Smith released thousands of pages of new evidence in Donald Trump's 2020 election subversion case Friday morning. There are over 1,000 pages of documents, but most of them are redacted. They're an appendix to his earlier 180-page detailed brief on what Trump was doing behind the scenes leading up to and on January 6th. Some detail we've already seen with tweets and social media posts from Trump, his campaign, and his allies. One tweet includes Trump's post on January 6th about Vice President Mike Pence, quote, didn't have the courage to do what should have been done. There are also memos from lawyer John Eastman with a plan for Pence to reject congressional certification of the 2020 election. Trump argues that releasing the documents now is election interference, and former DOJ officials seem to agree, suggesting Smith's timing of the release may run afoul of the department's guidance against taking any overt investigative step within 60 days of an election.
It's very important that the department has these norms so that to ensure that not only that they, in fact, don't act politically, but they appear not to act politically. And this is an unprecedented prosecution of a former president by an administration that is headed by the president and the vice president who were and are running against this president in this election. And in this context, more than any other context in the department's history, because this is the most sensitive investigation in its history, it needs to be really clear and explicit about why it's complying with these norms, and it just hasn't been.
This is likely the last major filing before Election Day in that case. With just over 2 weeks until Election Day, the democracy docket is heating up as courts across the country grapple with election-related litigation. This week, a pair of judges in the battleground state of Georgia blocked new rules that were put in place by a new Trump-backed election board. Fulton County Superior Court Judge Thomas Cox declared 7 new rules unconstitutional and completely void. Cox also said the Elections Board did not have the authority to pass them in the first place. One of the rules that has stirred up controversy in recent weeks would have required 3 separate poll workers to hand count ballots cast on Election Day to make sure that number matched up with the number of ballots from the scanner.
Whether we think the rules are a good idea or a bad idea is immaterial because it all goes back to separation of powers, and this is a regulatory board with unelected officials, and they simply don't have the authority to make laws like the Georgia General Assembly does.
Cox's order came just one day after Judge Robert McBurney put a hold on the ballot counting rule, saying it was too close to the election to implement. Cox also struck down a rule on certification, saying essentially the county election officials must certify the results. State election officials reported a record 310,000 votes on the first day of early voting in the Peach State. That's more than double the number of early votes on day 1 in 2020. Meantime, former President Donald Trump is now using DOJ's voting rights lawsuit against Virginia on the campaign trail.
I just haven't gotten over something the Justice Department did yesterday, where Virginia cleaned up its voter rolls and got rid of thousands and thousands of bad votes, and the Justice Department sued them that they should be allowed to put those bad votes and illegal votes back in and let the people vote. So I haven't gotten over that. A lot of people have seen that. They can't even believe it.
That's not exactly what the lawsuit says. DOJ says Virginia is systematically removing people from the voter rolls too close to the election, which violates the National Voter Registration Act. We'll talk more about this with Governor Glenn Youngkin coming up. Courts in battleground states are now making plans to expedite election-related cases in the run-up to November. That's according to Reuters' Nate Raymond. The Supreme Court of swing state Arizona issued an order this week giving priority to election cases, recognizing their heightened importance in a presidential election. Excuse me. Courts in Pennsylvania and Michigan made similar moves to clear the way for election litigation in the coming weeks and after November 5th, as states then begin to certify their results. Meantime, North Carolina's Republican candidate for governor Mark Robinson is suing CNN after the news outlet reported that he made explicit racial and sexual posts on a pornography website. Robinson's polling numbers have plummeted since the report, and he denies writing the comments. Robinson calls the report defamatory and wants at least $50 million in damages. The network said its investigation included matching Robinson's account on the site with other accounts, usernames, email addresses, age, and biographical information, as well as similar phrases he used on social media sites. On Tuesday, the Supreme Court heard the case of Douglas Horn, a trucker who was fired from his job after failing a drug test because it turns out he took a supplement containing THC, even though the company that made the supplement assured him that there was no THC in the product. Horn suffered from pain and inflammation related to a car accident. He saw an ad for a CBD product, but knowing that he received random drug tests as a part of his job, he called a customer service rep for the company who confirmed there was no THC in the CBD supplement. But when Horn failed a drug test, he set the supplement off for testing at an independent lab, and it tested positive for THC. So the question in this case is whether Horn can sue the company that made and advertised the supplement for his lost wages under RICO. That's a law used to go after organized crime and mobsters. Horn says that the company conspired to commit wire and mail fraud. The company says that's not what the law is meant to punish. And now the justices will decide whether his claims can move forward. We can expect a decision in that case sometime next year. The Supreme Court also blocked a decision that would have allowed 18-year-olds to openly carry guns in Pennsylvania during emergencies. That leaves in place the Commonwealth's ban on people under 21 openly carrying a gun during declared emergencies. Challengers had argued that the ban violated the Second Amendment's guarantee to keep and bear arms because people under 21 were not banned from having guns when the country was founded. The court directed the Federal Appeals Court in Pennsylvania to take a second look at the case in light of the Supreme Court's recent decision that upheld a ban on guns for people subject to a domestic violence restraining order. Meantime, Maryland, Virginia, and D.C. will move forward with their lawsuit against Facebook parent company Meta, accusing the social media giant of harming teens. The DMV joined a 30-state coalition, filing a federal lawsuit in California, where Meta is based. And this week, a federal judge rejected Meta's bid to toss the lawsuit. Now the case is allowed to proceed, and Meta may be forced to cough up information about what they knew about teen addiction to the platform and when.